The next episode of the Nickelodeon Marathon is not today. Nope. We kind of wanted to take a break. Kat said, "Do you want to watch a Nickelodeon movie or an art movie?" And I was like, "What do you mean art movie?" So we watched Before Sunrise, the 1995. Yep, the 1995 Richard Linklater film starring Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. Well, Julie Derpy, am I right? It is a romance film. It's definitely an artsy kind of movie. It's a romance film. That's it. That's what it is. It's a romance movie. It is nothing. It is you. There's literally nothing that you could describe it as other than a romance film. It's fantastic. It's really good. I am not one who is particularly for romance stories. I don't mind one, you know. It's not like I'm not opposed to the genre. It's just not something I'm usually interested in. But wow, this movie was really good. So the basic premise is it stars Ethan Hawke is this American guy who is on vacation. Well, he's visiting Europe and he's just kind of touring around on the going on the Eurail, the Euro train. When he's on the train and he meets Julie Delpy's character, who is his name is Jessie and she's Celine, and she's this French girl who was visiting. She's coming from Budapest and she's going back to, I think, Paris because she's going to study, and he's just kind of drifting. Or no, he has a flight that's going to take off in the morning, in the morning of the next day, and they meet on the train and they kind of hit it off, and he's going to stop in Vienna and basically just spend the night. He doesn't have enough money for. They have this conversation, and they hit it off, and then as he's getting off, he's like, "Fuck it," and he goes back and he says like, "Hey, like I'm gonna super regret it if I don't at least ask you. Do you want to like spend the day hanging out in Vienna and the night, I guess?" And he basically explains, "Hey, all right, well, I don't have enough money for a hotel, so I was just kind of gonna stay up the whole night in the city and catch my plane in the morning." And you, like, they were talking about their travel plans and all that. He's like, the difference to you really isn't that much. Do you just want to basically make a day out of it?" And she says, "Yeah, why not?" Because she kind of likes him. And the entire movie is it's the day that they spend walking around Vienna before the next sunrise, when they have to both leave. And what the fuck? I feel like crying. I feel like crying now. This movie's so fucking good. It's very simple. I knew that I kind of figured out what it was going to be when there's a scene. It's like when they first get off the train, they're walking around and they meet these two German guys because they don't know what to do around Vienna, right? They meet these two guys who speak English, and they ask like, "Hey, what is there to do around here?" And they say, "Well, we have a play at like 9:30 tonight. Here's like the thing, you should come check it out." And they're like, "Oh, all right, sure." And they get like the schedule or whatever, or they get the flyer for the play from them. And then in my mind, in most movies, this is where you cut to them watching the play. But they don't do that. They just go to the next thing of like them 5 minutes later. And I was like, "Oh, are you really gonna start mowing your lawn while I'm recording?" Fuck. Pause. Close to my window. This is the moment they just cut off. Or sorry, they what the fuck? I gotta get my thoughts back now. God damn it. This is the moment where they cut to them in the play, and they don't do that. They go to just like the next, them 5 minutes later, walking around somewhere else. And the entire movie is them walking around Vienna, having various conversations about things and looking at things and falling in love. And it is immaculate. It is so fucking good. It's such a how do I describe this? This is a movie that I really like. It's the kind of thing that I really like because it's basically a flex from the writer and the actors. This is like a great movie if you're an actor, because there is literally nothing that the film can hide behind. You ever watch a movie and you're like, the story was kind of whatever, but like, the action was fine, or the special effects look pretty good, or something like that. This movie has none of that. The entire movie is two fucking people talking. If the dialogue is not amazing, if like the dialogue isn't good, the movie doesn't work. If the performances aren't convincing in the slightest, the movie doesn't work. It completely falls apart. And the two aspects that needed to work, they completely nail it. This was written also by Richard Linklater, co-written by King Crimson. Ethan Hawke, and I'm obviously like more. I'm more. I'm more focused just because I write stuff. I'm more focused on like the writing and the dialogue and stuff. But you have to give it to Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. They do a tremendous job. I 100% believe that these two people are in love. Not just that they're in love, but that they're falling in love, and you're watching it happen. It is so incredibly convincing. I'm really interested what the script looked like, actually, because the dialogue is, it's constructed, but it's kind of it's naturalist. It's fairly naturalistic in the sense that, like, how do you describe it? Naturalistic dialogue is such a weird term because what most people think of as feeling natural is not really how people talk, but it feels right, if that makes it. It's almost like it's less like natural in the way that people speak, but it's more natural in the way that you think, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like when people talk about naturalistic dialogue, what they really mean is this is how people would speak if everyone was able to put their thoughts into words exactly as they wanted to all the time. And this movie is basically all that. Their chemistry is fantastic. They kind of like, they have this like funny back and forth. They kind of like, they stumble a little bit over their words. They sort of cut each other off a little bit. They're just their facial expressions while they're talking. Just these long, unbroken shots of them just sitting in a place and talking to each other and just watching their facial expressions change in just this single held shot. And it's like, it feels like I'm watching two people have a conversation, but in like a slightly constructed movie way, if that makes sense. The directing, very straightforward. It's not a flashy movie at all. The editing, very straightforward. There's like no soundtrack. There is a song that plays at the very beginning, and there's a song that plays at the very end. And I think it's like this classical, I think it's the same classical piece. That's the only like non-diegetic music in the entire film. Everything else is like music that is literally in the scene, like that they walk past someone who's performing or something like that. God, what a fuck. There's something I was going to talk about. Oh yeah. So like, part of the the bomb under the table. Have I mentioned this? I feel like I've mentioned this before on the podcast. But I'll reiterate it. Alfred Hitchcock's bomb under the table. So Alfred Hitchcock had this thing where he said that basically is how do you create tension in a scene? And the key is to actually give the audience enough information. Maybe not too much, but enough information for them to know the stakes of something. So he brings up this example of a scene where there's people eating dinner. They're eating a meal at a table. And they're talking for about 15 minutes, right? And it's just back and forth. And they're just talking about whatever. And then suddenly a bomb explodes under the table. From it was under there the whole time. And they just everyone incinerates. And the audience, as an audience member, that was 15 minutes of meh, followed by what the fuck, and like just, this 2 minutes, let's say, of adrenaline and craziness, feeling that craziness. But if if, for instance, in the other example he gives, if you start the scene and the audience knows there's a bomb under the table, they're watching the entire scene, and now it's not just drab conversation that they're having. You're watching them talk, and the entire time you're thinking about the bomb under the table and whether or not they're going to find out. Or, there's this new context that's established that creates tension. That the audience actually knows something bad is going to happen. It creates a more engaging scene overall than if there was just like a shock twist at the very end. And this movie has that element. There's a bomb under the table, and the bomb under the table is that they have to say goodbye in the morning. And it is, the whole time you're watching this, like this, it's this just delightful budding romance that you're watching grow on screen. And the more they like each other and the more you see them falling in love, the more like this thing is building up in the back of your mind of like, fuck, they have to say goodbye to each other. Oh, fuck, no, I don't want that to happen. And because the movie has it's so decompressed, you're not jumping forward in time very, very much. It's so decompressed that you're able to spend a lot of time, and you almost find yourself like the characters. Like, they know it too. They know that they're going to have to say goodbye in the morning. But they kind of just, like, try to savor the moment. And you as the audience are trying to do the exact same thing in preparation for this heartbreak that's coming up. I am not a big crier, right? I cry so rarely at movies. This film made me not cry, but tear up. This film really made me like invested in it. And a part of that, mind you, is that I watched this like with my beloved girlfriend. And so there's a bit of like, what would you call it? Sympathy, or it's like, oh, I don't want to say goodbye to my girlfriend. So that probably enhanced it a little of the person I was watching it with. But even if I wasn't, I think it would still be, I don't know if I'd cry, but I would still be, I would be really, I think I'd still be, it's still an engaging film. I was never bored, right? What did I mention about, I was thinking about, I think I've talked about something about how like, a thing where you have to be really good at writing dialogue. What was I talking? I feel like I was talking about a movie in like a couple episodes ago, and like in order to it was Tetris. I was talking about Tetris, right? Like I could envision you making a film about Tetris, about that story, where most of the movie was negotiations between the characters, right? Between the key players in that deal. The problem is that you have to be really good at writing dialogue. So that's why the movie has to like cover it up with like all this weird shit, right? As like almost like a crutch. Maybe that's like a hard way of looking at it, or a harsh way of looking at it. But Before Sunrise is like the opposite of that. There is no crutch at all. This is I can't stress this enough. It's a film that only works if the dialogue is good and the acting is good and the dialogue is written impeccably. Like it's these two real feeling characters who have like real motivations, and they respond. They have like goals or lack of goals in Ethan Hawke's case. They're like able to like articulate themselves pretty well, so you get an idea of who they are, and like what are their formative experiences and all that. And like these really fleshed out characters that you're seeing kind of like, what would you call it? What's the word? Be revealed before your eyes. Yeah, can't recommend that enough. Really great movie. Also, not very long. We were kind of it's like 130 minutes or something. How long is it? I have the Wikipedia up. Oh, 101 minutes. No, I'm not even. Yeah, it's 101 minutes. It's just like regular feature length. Excuse me. There are three films. In the series. It's followed by Before Sunset, and then finally Before Midnight is the last movie. And wow, that came out. Wow, so the first one was 95. Before Sunset was in 2004, and Before Midnight was 2013. Wow, that's a long gap. Yeah, so we're probably going to watch all three of them. We didn't want to marathon them. Maybe we could have, but we didn't want to, because it's just a lot, you know. After watching the first movie, I was pretty content. I was happy. Yeah, Before Sunrise. Even if you weren't super into romance films, this is a good one. This is a really good. It's just a good movie.